Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm sure all of you, just like me, are hoping for an alt season to happen, just like it did in 2020 to 2021, 2017 to 2018, and even a small one back in 2012 and 2013, just like we had those bullish crypto cycles back then. A lot of people already think that there won't be an alt season, and if it does happen, you'll be on a much smaller scale than in the previous cycle, since what we theoretically need for an alt season to happen is for Bitcoin's dominance to drop. I really want you to watch this video until the end, and I'm being totally serious, because I've spent several hours analyzing data on what would happen if, instead of Bitcoin's dominance dropping, other types of dominance in the crypto market, which also negatively affect the rest of the altcoins, were to decrease. We'll analyze everything with Magic Excel, and at the end, we'll project, as a hypothetical scenario, what Ethereum's price would be if these other types of dominance, and only these, were to decrease. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm telling you this now, but don't do it yet, at least not during the video. If you're enjoying this, finding it entertaining, or if it's useful, please like or subscribe because it really helps me out. And as I mentioned in yesterday's video, there are only 4 days left until my trading tournament starts on BitGet. To participate, just create an account using my referral link, which you'll find in the description of this video. You'll get a 20% lifetime discount on commissions, both for spot and futures, and in 4 days you'll be able to join this tournament directly. We're going to create a subgroup within my private trading group on Telegram specifically for this tournament. There are total incentives of $4,500, and different goals can be achieved along the way. And another thing I'm planning for the coming weeks, starting now, I'm going to begin doing some live streams on YouTube, also focused on trading. Whether it's trading, commenting on the current state of the market, or answering your questions, because a lot of you ask me about certain cryptocurrencies and so on, you message me privately, and honestly, I just don't have enough time. Starting next week, I'm going to begin doing live streams. There will be a part of the live streams dedicated to the tournament, trading, participating with you all, and all that, and another part will be to discuss the current state of the crypto market and, above all, to answer any questions you have right now about the crypto market. Well, if we go directly to July 4th, 2021, we can see that we not only have Bitcoin, but there are also other factors that affect that dominance, that influence whether the money in cryptocurrencies is not in altcoins, but rather in other assets. And those are Bitcoin, but also, and this is super important, they're also the altcoins. As I said, if we go directly to this July 4th, 2021, we had Tether, we had USDC, we had BUSD. If we scroll down a bit more, we have Terra USD and we also have True USD. If we go down a little further, we have Paxos Standard, and rounding out the top 100 stablecoins on CoinMarketCap is HUSD. From that point on, the market capitalization of the rest of the altcoins doesn't represent anything significant in the crypto space, so we're not going to take them into account in this video because it would just be an addition of 0.005%. If we go straight to the magic Excel sheet I've prepared for this video, we're going to take into account what happened in that year 2021 so we can compare it with what's happening now in 2025 and also what happened during 2024. As we've already mentioned, Bitcoin dominance, USDT dominance, USDC, Terra USD, True USD, PX, and HUSD. So, if we make a comparison with what we have right now, what has changed? Currently, we have Bitcoin dominance at 63.4% and slowly rising, UST dominance at 5.5%, USD dominance at 2.32%, USD dominance at 0.2%, DAI dominance at 0.2%, FUSD at 0.1%, and PayPal's PYUSD at 0.05%. And you can also see that right here. Now the dominance has fluctuated a bit. We have Bitcoin at 63%, just so you keep that in mind. What would be the gold dominance among the rest of the cryptocurrencies that are not related to Bitcoin dominance or the dominance of the other stablecoins? Well, there would basically be Ethereum's dominance, which is the one we're going to consider so that at the end of the video, we can give a projection, if certain parameters are met, of what price Ethereum would reach. Ethereum dominance is at 8.28, 8.29%, and we have to go back directly to the beginning of 2024, which theoretically is when this cycle started, end of 2023, beginning of 2024, to see an Ethereum dominance that was more than double what we have now. Some of the other players we have in today's video, like USDT dominance, which is currently at 5.54%, and which, during this cycle, we've seen go as low as 3.78%. Not only that, but also the dominance of USDC, the dominance of DAI, and different types of dominance that are affecting the crypto market, including, for example, PayPal USD. And really, if we put everything into context, now many of you might say to me, but Johnny, in this cycle we have a count of 7 stable coins, or basically the dominance of Bitcoin, which actually has some relevance or really affects the crypto market. However, in the previous cycle, we counted 8. I completely agree with that, but let's go straight to USDT, because that's another metric we really need to consider. Let's look at the whole picture, let's look at the market cap, and we can see that starting from July 2021, the market cap of USDT back then was around $50 billion. In other words, that's about a third of what we have now. I don't know if you're starting to see where I'm going with this, but it's not just happening with USDT. If we go straight to USDC, select all, and look at July 2021, we can see exactly the same thing. In July 2021, USDC had a market cap of $25 billion. Right now, we have more than double that. It might seem trivial, but yes, it's true that in the previous cycle, between Bitcoin and the rest of the ST and the other stable coins that had some presence or actually made an impact in the crypto space, the amount that altcoins didn't have in market cap was bigger. However, in this cycle, even if there are a few less, the amount of market cap they have is much higher. Does that mean more money has come into the crypto space? No, because if we compare the total from the previous cycle at its AVH, there was almost $3 trillion, and the one we have now doesn't even reach 2.8, $2.7 trillion, and it's been slowly dropping over the last few days. By the way, guys, I want to remind you that in the description of this video, you also have a link to access the Bitpanda broker, which is currently giving away 60,000 euros in Bitcoin to 60 winners. For example, this one has already happened. This one, for example, has already happened. This one, for example, has already happened, but we have the one on April 3rd, which is today, and the one on April 4th, which is tomorrow. One of them is by investing in any asset, and the other is simply by staking any asset. So you can buy Bitcoin directly and then stake Bitcoin. And there will be 12 winners in one and 12 winners in the other. On top of all that, Bitpanda's broker has more than 700 assets, including cryptocurrencies, stocks, commodities, ETFs, precious metals, and so on, and so on, and so on. And it's a good choice since at some point the crypto cycle will end and we have two options, either exit crypto and withdraw the money from the exchanges or directly transition it to other assets within the Bitpanda broker. Remember, the link is in the video description. And now you might be asking, well, Johnny, why does this happen? Why do we have a much higher market cap in USDT than USDC? We don't have that market cap in the rest of the altcoins, and the total capitalization of all the cryptocurrencies in the crypto space is lower than what we had in the previous cycle at the all-time high, with Bitcoin practically at $70,000 in November 2021. We have to take into account how the minting of USDT and USDC works, and not just these two assets, but also the other stable coins that affect the crypto market. And that's basically why, with the minting that happens, for example, with USDT on the Tron network, it's from there that it gets distributed, and that's when it impacts or can impact the crypto space. We also have to understand that when we're in a period of fear or extreme fear, people take refuge either in Bitcoin or directly in stablecoins, which causes the dominance of Bitcoin or the dominance of other stablecoins to increase. Now what we're going to do is go straight to the screen, because I'm sure you have a question in mind. Currently, Bitcoin's dominance is at 63%, but what is the total dominance we have in the crypto space? And I want you to leave your answer in the comments. Pause this video. What is the total dominance that the main stablecoins have? Adding Bitcoin dominance, what would be the total, and what would be left for the rest of the altcoins? This will help us understand what's currently happening with other major altcoins in the crypto market, like Ethereum. And once again, we go straight to the screen with the magic Excel, and we can see the following. Bitcoin dominance is 63%, USDT 5%, USDC 2.32%, and so on and so forth, resulting in a total sum of all these percentages of 71.86%. In other words, just so you get an idea, only about 28% of this total is in altcoins. More than 70% is currently held in stablecoins or in Bitcoin. And we really need to keep this in mind because in the previous cycle, we already know that Bitcoin dominance dropped to 40%. In the previous cycle, we know that after that first phase of alt season we had during the first 3 or 4 months of 2021, from that point on, Bitcoin dominance started to rise again a bit, while the rest of the crypto market dropped by almost 50 to 60%. And it's at the end of the cycle, in the last quarter of 2021, when Bitcoin dominance drops a little less, causing the rest of the altcoins to appreciate quite a lot. Alright, in this cycle, Bitcoin dominance is at the same level as it was in April 2021. You can check Bitcoin dominance yourself. However, the rest of the dominances in the previous cycle were at much lower levels. In the previous cycle, at this time, we didn't have USDT dominance at 5.5%, and you can check that yourself. We also didn't have USDC dominance at this percentage at 2.32%. So here, it's like hunger needs the desire to eat. What happens is that the market cap of these stable coins is much higher, while at the same time, the dominance percentage of these stable coins is also a bit higher, resulting in the total one being lower than what we had in the previous cycle. Alright, let's take the next step. Taking into account the dominance of the different stable coins and Bitcoin dominance, which gives us this total, what would happen if we subtract total 1, which is currently at $2.62 trillion and, as we've mentioned, is the total market capitalization of all cryptocurrencies, by the market cap, meaning the percentage that represents the dominance of all this. That's 71.86%, which would be $1.88 trillion. Subtracting one from the other, what's left for the rest of the altcoins is $0.73 trillion. And if we go directly to the total and add a new column, actually 3 new columns, the result is as follows. If we consider which is the most important altcoin we currently have, which would be Ethereum, and we look at Ethereum's current dominance, which is 8.28%, and also take into account that Ethereum's market cap is $216 billion, or in other words, $0.216 trillion, and we subtract what Ethereum has from what remains. For the rest of the altcoins, the result is that the remainder, excluding Ethereum, is $0.51 trillion. Johnny, you're bombarding me with a ton of data. So, what's coming next? Well, what's coming next is what's really important. Taking into account that USDT's dominance is 5.5% and USDC's dominance is 2.32%, we're going to subtract a portion of this dominance. At no point are we going to lower Bitcoin's dominance. We're just going to lower the dominance, and not by much. Just a bit lower than the minimum we've seen in this cycle. For example, UST has dropped to 3.70%. You can check that on TradingView. We're simply going to set it so that it stays at a dominance of 3%. In the event that an alt season comes, or even if an alt season doesn't happen, UST dropping its dominance to 3% could still happen, just like in the previous cycle when the alt season arrived and UST's dominance was at a much lower point. Let's suppose that UST's dominance drops to 1%. Let's suppose that the rest of the stablecoins end up reaching 0.5%, which would mean that if you subtract this, and this, and this, and the rest of the stablecoins with what we have here, the result would be that there would be an extra 4% of market cap left over from that total available for the rest of the altcoins. If we take into account the total one, subtracting the dominance from this total one that has to do with stablecoins and with Bitcoin, there would be a remainder of $0.73 trillion. If we've already mentioned that Ethereum holds an 8.28% dominance, and that this represents $216 billion, or in other words, $0.216 trillion, leaving a total of $0.51 trillion, and if we look at this in relation to the rest of Ethereum's market cap, that is, this part here and this part here, it would mean that, in terms of market cap, in terms of money inflow, if this were to drop by 4%, Ethereum would account for 27.86%. And what is 27.86% of this and this in relation to this 4%? Well, it would basically be 1.11%. Or in other words, for Ethereum's dominance to go from 8.28% to 9.39%, after adding this difference we have here and comparing it with this other difference over here, which gives us, drumroll please, the current price of Ethereum, which is at $1,800. Right now it's at 1,700 and something, taking into account Ethereum's current dominance, which is 8.28%, and considering the new dominance, which would be 9.39% just by factoring in a 4% drop in stablecoin dominance. At no point have we mentioned Bitcoin. And now is when things start to get interesting. Let's pull out the magic calculator right away. 9.39 divided by 8.28, which gives us a multiplier of 1.13. We then multiply this by the current price here of $1,800, resulting in a price for Ethereum of $2,041. This would be just for Ethereum. This 27% would go to Ethereum's dominance, and would affect its price. The rest of the altcoins, which would make up the remaining 75%, would obviously go up as well. I just want us to make that distinction. I want you to see the difference. It might seem like Ethereum hasn't gone up much, but that's because we've only subtracted 4% from the dominance of stablecoins. At no point have we said that Bitcoin's dominance drops from 63% to 58%, or from 58% to 54%. We're not even talking about it possibly reaching 45 or 40% like we saw in the previous cycle. We only need to, because this is very important to keep in mind, and here lies the crux of the matter. Right now, there's practically extreme fear in the market. If there's extreme fear in the market, where do people keep their money? Well, normally, speaking probabilistically, they're going to have it in stablecoins or in Bitcoin. That's precisely why, currently, 71.86% of all the money in the crypto space, out of that total, is either in Bitcoin or in the rest of the stablecoins. Guys, that's it for today's video. What do you think about what I've just told you? Does it really make sense that at some point, as the fear and greed index recovers, as market sentiment shifts from fear to neutral, from neutral to greed, and the dominance of UST, the dominance of USDC gradually decreases, just like we saw UST dominance at 3.7% in 2024, which wasn't that long ago, just a few months back? Do you think it makes sense that if at some point we return to greed, to extreme greed, Bitcoin's dominance could also drop, positively impacting the rest of the cryptocurrencies, the rest of the altcoins in the crypto space? Let me know in the comments because I'll be reading them. And I completely understand that right now it's a bit hard to see these kinds of things, especially because we're practically in extreme fear. And surely, for you watching this video, imagining something like what I just mentioned might seem difficult, especially if this is your first cycle. But don't worry, because after the storm, the sun always comes out. We don't know when Bitcoin will recover. Nobody has a crystal ball, not even me. Bitcoin could very well drop to the $75,000, $72,000 range. For me, $72,000 would be the lowest it could go, assuming the bull cycle continues. Okay? But that doesn't mean that at any given moment, if pretty much everyone thinks we're going to drop to 75, 76, 72, where a lot of interest points converge, the opposite could happen, and we might not reach those levels, and the crypto market could end up going up instead. We already saw what happened yesterday with the tariffs. It seemed, And as I mentioned in yesterday's video, Bitcoin started to rise quite strongly. We reached $88,000, but it didn't keep going up. I thought it would climb a bit more, and then it ended up dropping sharply to take out both the longs and the shorts, hitting both sides. Guys, thank you so much for your supportive comments. See you in the next video. Take care, and until next time.